David Reed floated through the docking corridor with his travel case in one hand and a pet carrier in the other. The artificial gravity kicked in as he crossed into the main hub of Harmony Point Station, and his boots touched the deck with a soft thud. Inside the carrier, an orange tabby cat named Whiskers let out a displeased meow. The journey from Earth had taken 3 weeks, and neither of them enjoyed zero-gravity transitions. The cargo bay assignment office sat at the end of a wide hallway lined with viewing ports. Through the transparent aluminum, David could see dozens of ships docked at various arms of the station. Traders from across the galaxy came here to do business in neutral space. It was the perfect place for a human cargo specialist to make a decent living. Far from the bureaucracy of Earth's government stations, you must be the new human. The voice came from behind a desk that seemed too small for its occupant. Captain Relm stood up, revealing 6 insectoid limbs and a pair of compound eyes that reflected the overhead lights in 1,000 different directions. The captain's exoskeleton was a deep green color, polished to a professional shine. David set down his carrier and extended his hand. David Reed reporting for duty. Relm looked at the offered hand with what might have been confusion, then reached out with one of his forward limbs. The handshake was awkward but functional. "Welcome to Harmony Point. I trust your journey was acceptable." "Long but smooth," David replied. He gestured to the carrier at his feet. "I have all my documentation in order, including the clearance for my companion animal." Relm's eyes shifted downward. "Yes, I saw that in your file. A cat, correct? I confess I am not familiar with Earth fauna." "That's him, Whiskers. He's harmless, just keeps me company during the long shifts." A laugh echoed from somewhere behind a stack of cargo containers. A massive reptilian figure emerged, scales the color of rust with arms thick enough to bend steel. Trader Besh was known throughout the sector for his exotic creature imports, and he clearly found something amusing about David's pet. "A companion animal?" Besh's voice rumbled like grinding stones. "That tiny furball is your idea of a companion? I have seen larger insects on my homeworld." David kept his expression neutral. "He suits my needs." Besh walked closer and bent down to peer into the carrier. Whiskers sat inside, yellow eyes tracking the alien's movement with calm indifference. "On my ship I keep a Grimstalker. 3 meters long, claws that can shred hull plating. Now that is a proper beast. This creature looks like prey." "Appearances can be misleading," David said quietly. Relm made a clicking sound that David's translator interpreted as a polite cough. "Besh, please. The human has just arrived. There is no need for mockery." "Mockery? I speak only truth." Besh straightened up and crossed his massive arms. "Humans bring decoration animals to a working station. Next you will tell me it serves a function beyond sitting and eating." "He's an excellent hunter," David offered. "Back on Earth, cats are known for their predatory skills." This brought another laugh from Besh, and even Relm seemed to tilt his head in what might have been skepticism. A new voice joined the conversation, high and melodic. Dr. Yara glided into the cargo bay on wings that folded tight against her avian body. Her feathers were a mixture of blue and silver, and her large eyes held the sharp intelligence of a medical officer. "A predator?" She looked at the carrier with obvious doubt. "Forgive me, David, but that creature appears to weigh perhaps 4 kilograms. What does it hunt?" "Dust particles. Small rodents, insects, sometimes birds," David explained, refusing to let the mockery get under his skin. He had dealt with worse during his academy days. "They're very efficient," Yara made a soft chirping sound. "I hunt insects as well, but I would not call myself fearsome." She glanced at Relm. "No offense, Captain." "None taken," Relm replied. His compound eyes fixed on David. "Your quarters are in Section 7, Corridor B. The cargo bay assignments will begin tomorrow. I suggest you get settled and let your small friend adjust to the station environment." David picked up his carrier and case. "Thank you, Captain. I'll be ready for duty in the morning." As he walked away, he could hear Besh's rumbling voice behind him. "The humans send their representatives with toy animals. Is it any wonder they are considered the soft species of the galaxy?" Yara's reply was quieter but still audible. "They are peaceful, yes. But I have read their history. Perhaps peaceful is not the same as harmless." "Philosophy from a bird doctor," Besh scoffed. "Mark my words, that little furball will be the station mascot within a week. Something to amuse the younglings during their parents' business dealings." David said nothing as he made his way through the corridors. He had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. Let them laugh now. Let them think Whiskers was just a decoration, a toy, a soft reminder of human sentimentality. They would learn eventually. Earth was classified as a moderate death world for good reasons, and every creature that evolved there carried certain traits in their DNA: survival instincts, predatory focus, the ability to kill when necessary. His quarters were small but functional. He released Whiskers from the carrier, and the cat immediately began exploring, sniffing every corner and surface. David unpacked his belongings and set up the small litter box and food dispensers he had brought from Earth. Within an hour, Whiskers had claimed the bed as his territory and was grooming himself with typical feline indifference to his new surroundings. "They don't understand you," David said, scratching behind the cat's ears. "They think you're harmless because you're small. They'll figure it out eventually." Whiskers purred and closed his eyes, already drifting toward sleep. For a creature that spent 16 hours a day resting, he seemed remarkably unconcerned about his reputation among the alien crew. David smiled and finished unpacking. Tomorrow would bring cargo assignments and the beginning of his duties. Tonight he would rest and let his companion do the same. Outside his quarters, the station hummed with the sounds of 100 different species conducting their business, making their deals and living their lives. Somewhere in the cargo bay, Besh's Grimstalker prowled in its containment unit, a creature bred for intimidation. In another section, other traders kept their own impressive beasts: armored hounds, venomous serpents, psychic familiars that could read thoughts. And in Section 7, Corridor B, an orange tabby cat slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams cats dream, completely unaware that he would soon become a legend. 3 days had passed since David arrived at Harmony Point, and the routine was beginning to feel familiar. He spent his shifts organizing cargo manifests, directing loading crews, and ensuring that hazardous materials were properly stored. The work itself was straightforward, but the constant comments about Whiskers were starting to wear thin. During the morning briefing, several crew members had started calling his cat the decoration or the fuzzy mascot. Besh had even offered to trade him a breeding pair of armored beetles that could at least carry small items. David declined politely, as he always did, but he noticed the pattern. The aliens saw softness where none existed. They saw weakness where there was only patience. Whiskers, for his part, seemed entirely unbothered by his reputation. He spent most of his time sleeping on David's bunk or sitting in the window, watching the ships come and go. Occasionally, he would chase a reflected light across the floor, which only reinforced the crew's opinion that he was nothing more than an amusing pet. Everything changed when Besh's special shipment arrived. The cargo vessel docked during the afternoon shift, and David was assigned to oversee the transfer of goods into Bay 3. Standard procedure required scanning all containers for dangerous materials, verifying manifest accuracy, and ensuring proper storage protocols. He was halfway through the checklist when Besh appeared with a container that made the scanner produce warning tones. "What is that?" David asked, looking at the readings. The container was reinforced with triple-layer shielding and had active cooling systems built into its walls. Besh's scaled face arranged itself into what David had learned was a smile. "A prize specimen from Crimson Vale. Very rare, very valuable. A juvenile Venom Fangbeast." David pulled up the database entry on his datapad and felt his stomach tighten. Crimson Vale was classified as a Class 9 death world, where the mortality rate for unprotected visitors exceeded 90% within the first hour. The Venom Fangbeast was listed as an apex predator, even in its juvenile state. 6 eyes for complete peripheral vision, retractable neurotoxin fangs that could paralyze prey in seconds, and an armored hide capable of deflecting most small arms fire. "You brought that here?" David looked at the container with new concern. "To a civilian station? It is perfectly safe," Besh assured him. "The containment unit meets all galactic safety standards. Triple redundancy on the locks, reinforced walls, sedation systems if needed. The creature cannot escape." "That's what they said about the Marlow Station incident," David replied, referencing a disaster from 5 years ago, where a containment breach had killed 17 people. Besh waved a dismissive hand. "That was different. Poor maintenance, inadequate protocols. I take no such risks. Besides, I have a buyer willing to pay enormous sums for this specimen. It will be on the station for only 2 days before transfer." David wanted to argue further, but Besh was technically following regulations. The containment unit specifications were all within acceptable parameters. He finished the scanning process and authorized the cargo for storage. It goes in the secure section of Bay 3, away from the main corridors. Of course. Besh supervised as loader robots moved the container into position. You worry too much, human. Perhaps if you had a proper beast of your own, you would understand. True predators demand respect, not fear. That evening, David noticed something odd about Whiskers. The cat sat near the wall that faced the cargo bay, ears pinned back, making a low growling sound that David had rarely heard before. When he tried to coax the cat away, Whiskers hissed and remained fixed on that spot. You can sense it, can't you? David said quietly. Something dangerous on the other side of that wall. Whiskers continued growling, his tail lashing back and forth. David checked the wall's specifications and confirmed that the cargo bay was indeed directly adjacent to his quarters. The Fangbeast was perhaps 20 meters away, separated by a bulkhead and its own containment unit. The next day, word had spread throughout the station about Besh's acquisition. During the shift change, a small crowd gathered in Bay 3 to view the creature through the container's observation window. David stayed at his post but could hear the excited chatter from the crew. Dr. Yara approached him with a medical data pad. Have you seen the Fangbeast yet? No, David replied, focusing on his inventory checklist. It is quite impressive. I can understand why Besh is proud of the acquisition. She paused. Though I must admit, having such a creature on the station makes me nervous. My species evolved as prey animals. We have strong instincts about predators. Your instincts are probably correct. Yara tilted her head. You disapprove? I think there's a difference between calculated risk and unnecessary danger. But it's not my decision to make. That evening, Reln called David to his office. The security chief seemed agitated, his limbs moving in patterns that suggested stress. I have received complaints about your cat. David kept his expression neutral. What kind of complaints? Several crew members report hearing it making disturbing sounds during the night cycle. Growling, hissing. It is unsettling to those with quarters near yours. He senses the Fangbeast, David explained. Cats have strong predatory instincts. He knows there's something dangerous nearby. Reln made a clicking sound. The Fangbeast is secure. There is no danger. I understand that. But Whiskers doesn't read safety reports. He just knows what his instincts tell him. Can you quiet the animal? David shook his head. Not really. He'll calm down eventually, but right now he's on alert. It's natural behavior. Reln's compound eyes reflected the office lights. Natural for a creature you claim is domesticated? Perhaps your pet is more wild than you admit. Domesticated doesn't mean tame, David said. It just means we've chosen to live together. Cats keep their hunting instincts no matter how many generations they live with humans. The conversation ended without resolution, but David could see the doubt in Reln's posture. The crew was starting to ask questions about Earth animals, about human choices, about what it meant to keep predators as companions. That night, David sat in his quarters with Whiskers still growling at the wall. He pulled up Earth's planetary classification on his data pad and read through the details he had memorized years ago. Moderate death world, 67% of land surface habitable with standard precautions. Diverse predator population across multiple ecological niches. Warning. Many native species display traits associated with high-stress evolutionary environments. He looked at Whiskers, who had finally settled into an uneasy rest, still facing the wall toward the cargo bay. The cat's ears twitched at every small sound, tracking, analyzing, preparing. Most of the aliens saw a small, lazy creature that slept all day. David saw what his cat really was. A perfectly optimized hunter waiting for the moment when rest would end and action would begin. Let's hope that moment never comes, David whispered. But deep down, in the part of him that still remembered Earth's forests and plains and the lessons taught by evolution, he knew better. On a station where beings kept predators as prizes and trophies, where danger was measured by size and appearance, where a human's small cat was considered a joke, the moment would come. It always did. The maintenance alert came through at 200-hour station time, right in the middle of the sleep cycle. David was already awake because Whiskers had been pacing the floor for the past hour, refusing to settle. The cat's agitation had reached new levels, and even trying to calm him with food had failed. Something was wrong, though David couldn't identify what. The alert itself seemed routine. Planned power redistribution to upgrade the secondary power grid in sections 5 through 8. Engineering crews would be working for approximately 2 hours to balance the load and improve efficiency. Minor fluctuations were expected but would be managed through backup systems. All secure areas would maintain full functionality throughout the process. David read the message twice and felt uneasy. The cargo bay fell within the affected sections. He pulled up the safety protocols and confirmed that all containment units had independent power supplies with triple redundancy. Even if the main power failed completely, the containers would remain sealed and functional for up to 72 hours. Whiskers jumped onto the desk and meowed loudly, pacing back and forth across the datapad. His pupils were fully dilated despite the room's lighting, and his tail was puffed to twice its normal size. "I know," David said softly. "Something feels off to me, too." He tried to access the cargo bay's security feed but found the system temporarily offline for the maintenance work. Standard procedure, nothing unusual, but it meant he couldn't visually confirm that everything was secure. The rational part of his mind said he was being paranoid. The part that had learned to trust his instincts and to trust Whiskers said otherwise. At Oro 2:37 hours, the lights flickered. Just once, barely noticeable, but enough to make David look up from his datapad. Whiskers froze mid-step, every muscle tensed. The station's environmental systems hummed at their normal frequency, and David waited for any follow-up alerts. Nothing came. He was about to dismiss it when his communicator chirped. Relm's voice came through, clipped and professional. "All personnel, this is a precautionary announcement. We are experiencing minor complications with the power redistribution. Remain in your quarters until further notice. There is no cause for alarm." David's hand moved to his communicator. "This is Reed. What kind of complications?" A pause. "Nothing serious. A cascade effect in the secondary systems. Engineering is addressing it now. Does that include the cargo bay?" Another pause, longer this time. "The cargo bay experienced a momentary disruption. All containment units are showing green status. As I said, no cause for alarm." David wanted to believe that, but Whiskers was now at the door scratching at the metal and yowling. The cat had never acted this way before, not even during the difficult parts of their journey from Earth. His behavior screamed danger in a language that didn't need translation. The emergency alarm shattered the station's quiet at 0241 hours. Red lights flooded the corridors as blast doors began sealing. David's communicator erupted with multiple voices talking over each other. But Relm's voice cut through the chaos with practiced authority. "Code Amber. Code Amber. Containment breach in Cargo Bay 3. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones immediately. Security teams to the bay." This is not a drill. David's blood went cold. He accessed the emergency channel and pulled up what information was available. The Fangbeast container had experienced a malfunction during the power fluctuation. The locks had disengaged for 47 seconds, just long enough for an intelligent creature to understand that escape was possible. By the time backup power had restored the locks, the container was empty. The security feed flickered back online, and David watched the creature moving through the cargo bay with terrifying grace. It was larger than he had imagined from the database images, easily the size of a large wolf, with 6 burning eyes that reflected the emergency lighting. Its armored hide was a dark purple that absorbed light, making it difficult to track even with enhanced sensors. As he watched, it tested the sealed blast door with one clawed foot, then turned and moved toward the ventilation system. "Negative, negative," Relm's voice came through. "The creature is entering the ductwork. We cannot track it reliably. All sections, seal your quarters and wait for security teams." David looked at Whiskers, who was still at the door, still desperate to escape. The cat's instincts were screaming at him to run, to get away from whatever was coming. David made a decision that most would consider insane. He opened a local channel to Relm. "Sir, I'm in Section 7, Corridor B. That's directly adjacent to the cargo bay. I am aware of your location. The blast doors are sealed. You are safe as long as you remain inside. The ventilation ducts run through my section. If that creature is using them to move around, it could get into my quarters." A long silence. "The ducts have security grates. Standard protocol. With respect, Captain, that thing just escaped from a container that was supposed to be escape-proof. I don't trust the grates." More voices in the background, someone arguing about duct specifications. David didn't wait for the debate to conclude. He looked around his quarters for anything that could serve as a weapon. The plasma cutter he used for cargo work was in the maintenance locker. He retrieved it and checked the charge. 70%. Enough for what he hoped he wouldn't need to do. Read, "This is Realm. Security feeds show the creature approximately 3 corridors from your position, moving through the ductwork. We have teams converging, but it will take time. I am ordering you to secure yourself in the bathroom. Seal the door and do not come out until we give the all clear." David looked at the bathroom, a small space with reinforced walls designed to serve as a safe room in emergencies. It made sense. It was the logical choice. But Whiskers was still in the main living area, crouched under the bed, and there was no way to reach him without risking both their lives in a chase. "Sir, my cat is in the main room. I can't reach him." "It is a pet, Reed. Your life is more important. Get to the bathroom now." David wanted to argue but knew it would be pointless. He moved toward the bathroom, plasma cutter in hand, and sealed himself inside. Through the door, he could hear Whiskers making a sound he had never heard before. Not quite a growl, not quite a hiss, but something primal that spoke of ancient battles between predator and predator. The security feed on his datapad showed the Fangbeast getting closer. It moved with purpose now, having found a trail it wanted to follow. David realized with growing horror that the creature was tracking scents through the ventilation system. And what scent would be strongest near his quarters? The cat, Whiskers, the small predator, that had been growling and marking territory. Near the wall for the past 2 days, the Fangbeast had found its prey. David watched the feed as the creature reached a vent grate 2 corridors away. It paused, sniffed, then tore the grate away with casual strength. The metal twisted like paper. So much for standard protocol and security measures. On the feed, he could see his own quarters from the external camera. The door was sealed, reinforced, designed to withstand standard breaches. But acid saliva was already dripping from the Fangbeast's jaws as it approached, melting the lock mechanism with biological chemistry that no engineer had planned for. In the command center, someone was probably screaming orders. Security teams were probably running through corridors. Besh was probably being arrested or at least detained. None of it mattered. The door to his quarters began to open, metal hissing as it dissolved. David gripped the plasma cutter and listened. From beyond the bathroom door in the main living area, Whiskers had stopped making noise entirely. The hunt had begun. In the command center, every screen showed different angles of the same nightmare. Rellan stood at the main console with Dr. Yara beside him, both watching the feeds from David's quarters with a mixture of horror and fascination. Behind them, a dozen other crew members had gathered, unable to look away from what was unfolding. The Fangbeast entered through the ruined doorway, its 6 eyes scanning the darkened room with predatory precision. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across its armored hide, making it look even more monstrous than the database images suggested. Acid dripped from its fangs, leaving small burn marks on the metal floor. It moved with the confidence of a creature that had never encountered anything it couldn't kill. "Where is the human?" someone asked. "Safe in the bathroom," Reln replied, though his compound eyes never left the screen. "But his pet is still in the main area. Under the bed, according to thermal scans." The Fangbeast moved deeper into the quarters, head low, following the scent. It had tracked prey across the Death World jungles of Crimson Vale since the day it was born. One small Earth creature would be simple, easy, quick. Then they saw Whiskers. The cat emerged from under the bed with movements so fluid they seemed almost liquid. His orange fur was standing on end, making him look larger than his actual size, but he was still absurdly small compared to the Fangbeast. Where the creature stood nearly a meter tall at the shoulder, Whiskers barely reached 30 centimeters. The difference was almost comical. What wasn't comical was the complete lack of fear in the cat's posture. "Why is it not running?" Yara whispered. Reln said nothing. His species had evolved from hive insects where individual survival mattered less than colony success. The concept of a small creature standing its ground against overwhelming force was alien to him, almost incomprehensible. Prey ran. That was the natural order. That was how survival worked. Whiskers did not run. The cat's body was low, weight balanced perfectly on all 4 paws. His ears were forward, not back. His tail was still, not lashing. Every aspect of his posture spoke of focus, of calculation, of a predator assessing another predator. The Fangbeast cocked its head, confused by this tiny thing that should be fleeing but instead waited with eerie patience. The creature took a step forward. Whiskers didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. The Fangbeast's confusion turned to irritation. It opened its jaws, displaying fangs that could punch through light armor, dripping with neurotoxin that could paralyze a creature 3 times its size. Whiskers blinked slowly, deliberately, in what David would have recognized as a sign of extreme concentration. The Fangbeast lunged. What happened next occurred too fast for most of the observers to process properly. Whiskers exploded into motion, moving with a speed that made the security feed blur. The cat didn't retreat backward, didn't try to escape. Instead, he moved forward and to the side, inside the arc of the Fangbeast's attack, slipping under the snapping jaws with centimeters to spare. As he moved, his claws extended and found their target, the soft tissue around one of the creature's 6 eyes. The strike was surgical, precise, delivered with the force of coiled muscle and millions of years of evolutionary refinement. The Fangbeast screamed, a sound that made several observers in the command center flinch. One eye was now bleeding, the protective membrane torn. Whiskers was already gone, retreating to a position near the overturned chair, weight balanced, ready for the next exchange. The entire attack had taken perhaps 2 seconds. Impossible, Besh breathed. He had pushed his way to the front of the gathered crowd, his scaled face showing an emotion David would have identified as shock. That is a Venom Fangbeast. They are apex predators. They do not lose exchanges with prey. Perhaps, Reln said quietly, it is not prey. The Fangbeast, enraged and hurting, charged again. This time it was faster, more aggressive, using its bulk to try to corner the cat against the wall. Furniture exploded as the creature barreled through David's small desk, scattering belongings across the floor. Whiskers leaped straight up, clearing the charge by what seemed like impossible margins, and landed on the creature's back. For 3 seconds, the cat rode the Fangbeast like a mechanical bull. Claws sunk deep into the gaps between armored plates. The creature thrashed and bucked, trying to dislodge its attacker, crashing into walls and adding new dents to the already ruined quarters. Whiskers clung with the grip strength of a creature designed to climb trees and catch birds in flight. Then, with perfect timing, he released and pushed off, using the Fangbeast's own momentum to launch himself across the room to a new position. As he flew through the air, his back claws raked across another of the creature's eyes, leaving parallel cuts that immediately began bleeding. The Fangbeast was now functionally blind on its right side, 4 of its 6 eyes damaged or destroyed. It spun in place, trying to track the cat with its remaining vision, but Whiskers had already disappeared under the collapsed bookshelf. The human cat is using environmental advantages, Dr. Yara observed, her medical training allowing her to analyze the combat with clinical precision. It understands that size is a disadvantage in a confined space. The Fangbeast cannot bring its full strength to bear against a target that stays close and uses obstacles. It is also targeting specific weak points, Reln added. Not random attacks. Every strike aims for maximum damage with minimum risk. The fight continued for another 8 minutes, though to the observers it felt like hours. The Fangbeast destroyed David's quarters in its attempts to catch Whiskers, tearing apart furniture, leaving acid burns on every surface, using its bulk to try to crush the cat against walls. But Whiskers was never where the creature expected him to be. The cat fought like water, flowing around attacks, finding gaps in defense, striking and retreating before counterattacks could land. He used the ruined desk legs as obstacles, the torn bedding as temporary cover, the narrow space behind the storage locker as a temporary haven. Every surface became a launching point, every piece of debris a tool, and slowly, methodically, the Fangbeast began to lose. More eyes were damaged. Deep cuts appeared on its throat where armor plates met. Its movements became slower as blood loss started affecting its coordination. The creature that had terrorized entire ecosystems on its homeworld was being taken apart, piece by something that weighed less than 5 kilograms. How long has it been? Someone asked. 12 minutes, Reln replied, checking his chronometer. 12 minutes. A lifetime in combat terms. The Fangbeast was stumbling now, its remaining eyes showing signs of confusion and pain. It made another charge, but this one lacked conviction. Whiskers dodged easily and delivered another strike to the creature's throat, claws finding the same wounds he had opened earlier. deepening them with brutal efficiency. The Fangbeast tried to roar, but the sound came out wrong, bubbling wet. It shook its head, trying to clear vision that was mostly gone now, trying to find the small predator that was killing it by degrees. Whiskers moved in for the final exchange. He leaped high, clearing the creature's weakening guard, and landed directly on its head between the destroyed eyes. For a moment, cat and beast were locked together, a tableau of primordial combat that transcended species and planets. Then Whiskers drove his claws down through the soft tissue behind the Fangbeast's skull plates, finding the vulnerable spot where spine met brain. The creature collapsed. In the command center, nobody spoke. On the screens, Whiskers stood on the fallen Fangbeast's head for a few seconds longer, making sure the threat was truly ended. Then he stepped down, shook himself once to dislodge the blood from his fur, and began the methodical process of grooming. "Sweet, merciful void," Dr. Yara whispered. "The human's small cat just killed a Venom Fangbeast in single combat." Besh made a sound like grinding metal. "Impossible. I have seen these creatures hunt in packs. They kill things 10 times their size. They are perfect killers." "Apparently," Realm said, his voice carrying a new weight of understanding, "they are not the only ones." The security teams arrived at David's quarters 3 minutes later, weapons drawn, prepared for a desperate fight. Instead, they found a dead Fangbeast with its throat torn open and 4 eyes destroyed, lying in a pool of its own toxic blood, and sitting nearby, calmly washing his paws, was an orange tabby cat who seemed entirely unconcerned with the fact that he had just done what most species would consider impossible. In the bathroom, David heard the all-clear signal and slowly opened the door. He took in the destruction of his quarters, the dead creature, and his cat sitting among the wreckage like a small furry emperor surveying his conquered kingdom. "Good boy, Whiskers," David said quietly. "Very good boy." The cat meowed once, demanding food as if he had done nothing more remarkable than catch a mouse. The security team entered David's quarters with weapons raised and expressions that mixed relief with disbelief. The lead officer, a crystalline being named Horv, whose body reflected light in prismatic patterns, slowly lowered his plasma rifle as he took in the scene. Behind him, 3 other officers did the same, their various appendages hanging loose in postures of shock. David emerged from the bathroom, plasma cutter still in hand, though he had never fired it. He set the tool down carefully and raised his empty hands. "The threat is neutralized." Horv's faceted eyes rotated to focus on the fallen Fangbeast, then to Whiskers, who was now sitting beside his empty food bowl and meowing with increasing insistence. "Your report stated you were sealed in the bathroom during the incident." "I was." David gestured to the destruction around them. Whiskers handled it. One of the other officers made a sound that David's translator interpreted as hysterical laughter. "The small earth creature killed a Crimson Veil predator?" "By itself?" "Yes." Horv approached the Fangbeast's corpse and examined the wounds with professional attention. Precision strikes to the eyes, deep lacerations to the throat, and what appears to be fatal damage to the brainstem through the cranial weak point. He turned to face David. "This was not luck. This was skilled combat. Cats are predators," David said simply. "They evolved to hunt." Dr. Yara arrived moments later, her medical kit clutched in her wing arms. She stopped at the doorway, taking in the carnage with wide eyes. "The human survives? And the cat?" "Both unharmed," Horv confirmed. "The cat requires examination, however. It may be injured." David picked up Whiskers, who purred and rubbed against his chest. "Let her check you out, buddy." "You earned it." Yara set up a portable scanner and began examining the cat with gentle touches. Her feathers ruffled in what David had learned was a sign of extreme agitation. Minor scratches, 1 shallow laceration on the right flank, elevated heart rate returning to normal parameters. She looked up at David. "Your companion animal engaged in lethal combat and sustained only minor injuries." "This is unprecedented, not on Earth," David replied. "Cats regularly hunt animals larger than themselves. Whiskers is actually on the smaller side for his breed." By now, a crowd had gathered outside the ruined doorway. Reln pushed through, his 6 limbs moving in patterns that suggested he was processing difficult information. "Reed, the security footage has been reviewed by myself and the command staff. We need to discuss what occurred here." "Of course, Captain." Reln stepped closer, lowering his voice. "When you said your cat was a predator, I assumed you were engaging in typical human exaggeration. We have documentation of your species' tendency to embellish the capabilities of your animals. We don't exaggerate, David said. We just have a different baseline for what's normal. Earth is classified as a moderate death world. Everything that evolved there adapted to survive in that environment. Including your companion animals? Especially our companion animals. We chose to live with predators, Captain. Dogs, cats, even some of the birds people keep as pets. They're all hunters in their own way. We domesticated them, formed partnerships with them, but we never removed their core nature. Besh appeared at the doorway, his large frame blocking most of the light. The trader looked diminished somehow, his earlier bravado replaced with something approaching humility. Human Reed, I owe you an apology. And compensation. My creature, my responsibility. The damage to your quarters, the danger to your life and your companion. I will make this right. David considered the offer. I appreciate that. But what I want most is better safety protocols. This shouldn't have happened in the first place. Agreed, Reln said firmly. I am implementing new regulations immediately. No Class 9 Death World creatures on civilian stations without special authorization, and enhanced containment measures. He paused. I am also revising our database entries for Earth species. It appears we have significantly underestimated them. Over the next several hours, teams worked to remove the Fangbeast's corpse and assess the damage to David's quarters. The creature's body would be studied, its death documented, and new protocols written based on what had occurred. David was moved to temporary quarters while repairs were scheduled, but the real changes were happening in the minds of the station's crew. Word spread through Harmony Point like a shockwave. Every species has its own methods of communication, and within 6 hours everyone knew about the human small cat killing a Venom Fangbeast in single combat. The recordings were watched repeatedly, analyzed, discussed in mess halls and storage bays and private quarters across the station. Did you see how it moved? The precision of those strikes. It never showed fear, not once, and the human just kept it as a pet. Living in his quarters? Dr. Yara filed a comprehensive medical report that included detailed analysis of Whiskers' physical capabilities. She noted the flexible spine that allowed impossible angles of movement, the retractable claws designed for both climbing and combat, the eyes built for hunting in low light, the reflexes that operated faster than most species' nervous systems could process. Her conclusion was simple but profound. Earth cats were perfectly optimized predators, and domestication had not diminished these traits. Other aliens began asking David questions, approaching him with new respect and barely concealed wariness. What other creatures did humans keep as pets? Were they all predators? What was Earth really like if these animals were considered normal household companions? A trader from the Outer Rim asked, if your cats are this dangerous, what are your actual guard animals like? David pulled up images of dogs on his datapad. German Shepherds, Rottweilers, Belgian Malinois. He explained their capabilities, their loyalty, their use in military and security roles. The trader's eyes widened with each detail. You keep wolves in your homes? Domesticated wolves, yes. We call them dogs. They're humanity's oldest companions, been with us for over 30,000 years. The trader made a gesture that David's translator identified as extreme respect, or possibly fear. Your species lives with predators by choice. We do. It's a partnership. They keep us safe, we provide for them. It works well. Another crew member asked about Earth itself, and David found himself describing his homeworld in ways he never had before. He talked about the variety of ecosystems, the density of predator species, the evolutionary pressures that shaped everything from insects to mammals. He mentioned that humans themselves were persistence predators, evolved to hunt through endurance and strategy. Even you? The question came from a young maintenance worker, whose species had evolved from herbivorous herd animals. You look so soft, David smiled. Looks can be deceiving. Humans can run for hours without stopping. We can survive in almost any climate. We heal from injuries that would kill other species. And we have enough intelligence to turn anything into a weapon. He gestured to the plasma cutter he had grabbed. I'm a cargo specialist, not a soldier, and even I knew to arm myself when danger approached. The conversations continued for days. The station's perspective on humanity shifted from seeing them as the soft, peaceful species to understanding that peaceful didn't mean harmless. It meant choosing not to exercise capabilities that were always present. Whiskers, for his part, seemed entirely unaffected by his new fame. He ate, slept, and occasionally chased reflections just as he always had. When crew members now watched him lounge in the sun from the viewport, they saw something different than before. Not a decoration or a toy, but a resting predator. Not harmless, but patient. Dr. Yara completed her examination and released Whiskers with a clean bill of health. As David prepared to leave the medical bay, she stopped him. "I have been thinking about your species," she said. "About what it means that you choose to live with creatures like this. It speaks to either great courage or great foolishness, or maybe," David suggested, "it speaks to understanding. We know what they're capable of. We respect it, but we also know they choose to be with us just as we choose to be with them. That's the difference between a weapon and a companion." Yara's head tilted in what might have been agreement. "Perhaps, but I think I will maintain a respectful distance from your small friend regardless." "Probably wise," David agreed, scratching behind Whiskers' ears. The cat purred and closed his eyes, once again the picture of domestic contentment. As they walked back through the corridors, David noticed the change in how others looked at him. There was respect now, certainly, but also a new kind of wariness. The human who kept a tiny killing machine as a pet, the representative of a species that coexisted with predators. It wasn't the reputation he had expected to earn on Harmony Point, but he would accept it. Because it was true, humans did live with predators. They always had, and maybe, just maybe, that said something important about who they were and what they were capable of. In his temporary quarters that night, David filed his official report and prepared for another day of cargo duties. Whiskers curled up on the pillow, purring softly, dreaming whatever dreams came to small orange cats who had faced death and won. Tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges, new interactions with aliens who now viewed humanity through a different lens. But tonight, in the quiet of the station's sleep cycle, David simply sat with his companion and appreciated the fact that they were both still alive. "Good cat," he whispered. "Very good cat." Whiskers' purr deepened in agreement. 2 weeks after the incident, Harmony Point had settled into a new rhythm. The repairs to David's quarters were complete. The enhanced safety protocols were in place, and Besh had paid substantial compensation that David used to upgrade the station's emergency response systems. But the real change wasn't in the infrastructure. It was in the way people moved through the corridors, the way they spoke to each other, the way they looked at the human cargo specialist and his orange cat. David was reviewing inventory manifests when Relin approached with a data pad and an expression that suggested official business. "Read, I have received 3 formal requests this week from traders asking about Earth animals. They wish to know if any are available for purchase or trade." David looked up from his work. "Let me guess. They want guard animals now?" "Precisely. Word of your cat's capabilities has spread beyond this station. Several parties are interested in acquiring similar creatures." Relin's compound eyes reflected the overhead lights. "I told them to contact Earth's official trade representatives, but they insist on speaking with you first." "I'm not a pet trader, Captain. I'm a cargo specialist, I understand. However, you have become something of an informal ambassador for your species. Whether you intended it or not, you have changed how many beings view humanity." David saved his work and leaned back in his chair. "What exactly are they saying?" Reln settled into a seat across from him, his multiple limbs arranging themselves in a posture of thoughtful consideration. "That humans are more formidable than previously assessed. That any species which chooses to live alongside predators must possess either great strength or great wisdom. That your homeworld produces creatures of unexpected lethality despite their appearance. And they're not wrong," David acknowledged. "Earth is tough. Everything that survives there has to be tough. Including us. I have been researching your planet's classification," Reln admitted. "A moderate death world with diverse predator ecology. I confess I did not fully understand what that meant until I saw the recordings. Now I do." A notification appeared on David's datapad. He glanced at it and smiled. "Speaking of Earth, I have incoming cargo arriving tomorrow. Personal effects for the new human specialist joining the station next month." "Another human?" Reln's interest was obvious. "What is their specialty?" "Engineering. Her name is Amy Lynn, transferring from a research station in the outer sectors." David pulled up the manifest. "And according to this, she's bringing a companion animal too." "Another cat?" "No. A dog." Relin made a clicking sound that David had learned meant thoughtful consideration. I should research this species before arrival, to avoid any misunderstandings. Probably a good idea, David agreed. Dogs are different from cats. Bigger, more social, very protective of their humans. They were bred from wolves over thousands of years to work alongside us. Wolves, Relin repeated slowly. I have read about wolves in the Earth database. They are pack hunters, apex predators, and humans domesticated them? We didn't just domesticate them. We formed a partnership. They helped us hunt, we shared our food and shelter. It's one of the oldest relationships in human history. Relin stood up, his posture suggesting he needed to process this information. I will ensure appropriate quarters are prepared, and perhaps implement additional protocols. After the captain left, David returned to his work but was interrupted again within the hour, this time by Dr. Yara, who carried a medical datapad and wore an expression of scientific curiosity. I hope I am not disturbing you, she said, but I wanted to share my completed analysis of the incident. The medical board has requested comprehensive data on Earth species for the Galactic database. What kind of data? Everything. Physical capabilities, behavioral patterns, evolutionary history. Your cat's performance has revealed significant gaps in our understanding. She activated her datapad, displaying a complex chart. For example, I documented Whiskers' reaction speed at approximately 60 milliseconds for visual stimuli. That is faster than most species' baseline reflexes. Cats evolved to catch birds and small mammals, David explained. Both require excellent reflexes. A bird can change direction mid-flight in fractions of a second. Cats had to adapt to match that speed. Yara made notes with quick movements of her wing arms. Fascinating. And the flexible spine. The retractable claws. The binocular vision optimized for judging distances. All adaptations for hunting. Cats are ambush predators. They needed tools that let them catch fast, agile prey while minimizing their own energy expenditure. David paused. Evolution on Earth is competitive. Everything has to specialize to survive. Your entire planet sounds exhausting, Yara said, but there was admiration in her voice. No wonder your species produces such remarkable creatures. Over the following days, David found himself in similar conversations with dozens of crew members. They wanted to understand Earth, to comprehend how a single planet could produce so many successful predator species. He explained about ecological niches, evolutionary pressure, the constant arms race between predator and prey. He showed them images of lions, bears, eagles, sharks, snakes. Each revelation brought new expressions of shock and respect. A merchant from the core worlds asked to see images of human cities. David obliged, showing pictures of Earth's major population centers. Gleaming towers surrounded by carefully maintained green spaces, cities built around rivers and coastlines, architecture that blended technology with natural elements. You build your homes in predator territory, the merchant observed. Do you not fear attack? We manage the wildlife. Keep certain species in protected areas, relocate others when necessary. But humans have been apex predators on Earth for a long time. Most animals have learned to avoid us. Most? There are still incidents. Bears near mountain communities, big cats near rural areas. But they're rare, and usually only happen when humans encroach on their territory or food sources. The merchant made a gesture of understanding mixed with disbelief. Your species shares a planet with creatures that could kill you, and you consider this normal. We do. It's just part of life on Earth. The conversation that changed things most significantly happened 3 days before Amy's arrival. Besh approached David in the cargo bay, his massive frame moving with uncharacteristic hesitation. Human Reed, may I speak with you? Of course. David set down the container he was scanning. Besh's scaled hands clasped together in a gesture David had learned meant humility. I have been thinking about what occurred, about my arrogance regarding predators. I believed that size and strength were the only measures of a creature's worth. Common mistake, David said without judgment. Your small cat taught me otherwise. It was not the largest predator, not the strongest, but it possessed qualities I had not considered: speed, precision, adaptability, intelligence. Besh paused. I have operated my business for 20 years, trading in exotic creatures. I thought I understood predators. Your Whiskers showed me I understood very little. Every predator evolves for its niche, David offered. The Fangbeast was built for its environment. Whiskers for his. Neither is better or worse, just different. Perhaps, but I noticed the human's predator survived while mine did not. Besh pulled out a data chip. I have compiled information on safe legal creature trading practices. New protocols, better containment, more thorough risk assessment. I would like your input before I implement them. David accepted the chip. I'll review it tonight. Thank you. Besh turned to leave, then stopped. One more question. The dog that arrives tomorrow. Should I be concerned? Amy's dog is a Labrador Retriever. They're bred to be gentle and friendly, very different temperament from a cat. But still a predator? Technically, yes. But dogs bond with humans differently than cats do. They see us as part of their pack. They're loyal, protective, and very trainable. Besh absorbed this information with visible effort. Your species has multiple types of predator companions, each with different characteristics. We do. And others too. Some people keep birds, reptiles, even fish. Earth has a lot of diversity. Clearly. Besh made a sound like grinding stone, which David had learned was his version of a laugh. I look forward to meeting this dog. From a safe distance. The day Amy arrived, half the station turned out to watch. She emerged from the transport with professional confidence, her engineering uniform crisp and her expression friendly. Behind her on a leash walked a golden-colored dog with a wagging tail and an expression of friendly curiosity. David Reed? She extended her hand. Amy Lynn, good to finally meet you in person. David shook her hand. Welcome to Harmony Point. I see you brought company. This is Cooper. She scratched behind the dog's ears. Best engineering assistant in the sector. He finds lost tools, keeps me company during long shifts, and occasionally provides emotional support during difficult repairs. Cooper, for his part, seemed utterly delighted by all the attention. His tail wagged continuously as various aliens approached to observe him from what they clearly considered safe distances. When a small maintenance worker's child approached, Cooper sat politely and allowed himself to be petted, his tail sweeping back and forth like a metronome of happiness. He seems very friendly, Reln observed, maintaining his own careful distance. Labs are bred for companionship, Amy explained. Gentle, patient, good with children. They were originally hunting dogs, but humans developed them to be versatile working animals. Hunting dogs, Reln repeated. More predators. Retrieval specialists, actually. They would fetch downed birds for hunters. Required a soft mouth that wouldn't damage the prey. Amy demonstrated by giving Cooper a toy. The dog took it gently, tail still wagging. David watched the scene with quiet satisfaction. The station crew was learning, adapting, beginning to understand what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had never quite figured them out. They were starting to see that strength came in many forms, that peaceful coexistence with predators required its own kind of courage, that Earth's classification as a death world had shaped everything that evolved there. That evening, David and Amy shared dinner in the station's mess hall while Cooper lay at her feet and Whiskers occupied David's lap. Around them, other species watched with varying degrees of fascination and wariness. I heard about what happened with the Fangbeast, Amy said between bites. Command sent out a whole briefing about it. Enhanced safety protocols, new regulations, the works. Whiskers made quite an impression, David agreed. Good. Maybe people will stop assuming humans are pushovers just because we prefer diplomacy to violence. She glanced around the mess hall. Though I have to say everyone seems pretty respectful now. That's new. 2 weeks ago they were laughing at my fuzzy mascot. And now they understand. Whiskers isn't a decoration. Cooper isn't just a pet. We're humans from Earth, and everything that comes from our world has learned to survive in a competitive environment. Amy raised her drink. To Earth, and to showing the galaxy that peaceful doesn't mean harmless. David clinked his glass against hers. To Earth. In the weeks that followed, Harmony Point became something of a destination for beings curious about Earth and its inhabitants. Traders who had dismissed humans now sought them out for information. Scientists requested data on Earth's ecosystem. Even military representatives inquired about the potential for human participation in security operations. David returned to his regular duties, but with a new understanding of his role. He wasn't just a cargo specialist anymore. He was a representative of his species, an example of what humanity brought to the galactic community. Not just technology or trade goods, but a different perspective shaped by life on a world where danger and beauty existed in equal measure. Whiskers, content with his new reputation as a legendary predator, mostly just slept. Sometimes he would sit in the window and watch the ships come and go, his tail twitching occasionally as he tracked movement only he could see. The crew members who passed by no longer saw a silly pet. They saw what he truly was, a small, perfect hunter resting between moments of action. And they remembered that Earth, that strange, moderate death world on the edge of known space, produced such creatures as naturally as other planets produced flowers or rocks. They remembered that humans chose to live with these predators, to share their homes and lives, to form bonds that transcended species and instinct. They remembered and they understood a little better what it meant when humans said they preferred peace. Not because they couldn't fight, not because they lacked the tools or temperament for violence, but because they had lived alongside predators long enough to know that the truly dangerous creatures were the ones who chose when to show their claws. And sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest among them could be the most dangerous of all.